Hi, I'm Lisa for Beaducation.com, and today we're going to talk about stamping on stainless steel, and today we're going to be working with utensils. So I'm going to show you lots of tips and tricks, but a couple things I want to point out right now that are very, very important. Don't stamp on stainless unless you're using a stamp that is specifically used on stainless. Like on the package it says it's fine with stainless, guaranteed, all that good stuff. So what happens is you might use a stamp and it works the first couple times, but if that stamp isn't hard enough to be working on this type of metal, it's going to start to mushroom and dull, and you won't notice it until you've used it multiple times, and then the stamp is ruined and you can't use it again. So there's a couple stamp sets out there that are specific to stainless, so we really encourage you stick with those or you're going to ruin your stamps. Now also, when you're adding dark to the impressions of your utensils, a fork or spoon, whatever, make sure you don't add dark to the impressions on the part that you might be eating with if this is going to be a functional piece. So we just don't know, how much of that you'll end up ingesting. So we just darken the impressions maybe on the handle. Now if you're making this piece decoratively, like you're going to hang it on the wall or something, then go ahead and darken the impressions in like the groove of the spoon or whatever. Otherwise, maybe skip it. You can definitely still read the letters. It'll still look great. So let's get started. Okay, before we actually start stamping on these utensils, I want to show you a couple issues you're going to run into depending on the utensil. So let's look at these forks and spoons here. This guy right here is great because if I want to stamp on the handle, it's flat, it rests right against the bench block. See how there's no gap between the bench block and the handle. I'm just going to need something over here to brace this up because I can't be having that happen. So I need to find something, maybe my pad, although that's a little high, maybe the handle of this hammer. I'm just finding random things. Maybe that's okay, or maybe a little lower. But you see where I'm going with this. You need to find something that will keep it up, because let's say I was stamping over here, the minute I let go, it drops. So I need to find something to sit right there. Maybe a wad of paper towel, that would work. Same goes for if you're going to stamp in the groove of a fork or a spoon. So every time you stamp, here's what you have to remember. You need to have, let's say I'm stamping eat right here, which is right in the middle. I need to have that part flat against my bench block to get a good stamp. I can't be stamping like this where the metal isn't touching the bench block. It's just going to dent. So with each shift of your letters, you're going to have to find something new to hold the back, to hold it in the right spot. So I really like the sandbag because like for here, I need a little higher, so I'm going to scoot it up, and then I could do this middle word here. If I wanted to do the cake part, I pull it back, push it down, and you can see how now that's set to do that part against there. Does that make sense? Okay, let me show you a couple of other things. This guy I stamped, and it was great because it was flat, so very easy to stamp on the flat part, but again I needed to brace it over here. So one thing, let's say I wanted to stamp right here on this spoon, which I actually have another one of these spoons, and I stamped right there. There is that little gap, see the gap between the spoon and the bench block? So I'm not going to be able to stamp on that. I need to flatten it first. Now, depending on the silverware or the utensil, you might be able to come in with your plastic mallet and flatten it down a little bit. See, we're getting closer. May or may not work with this, but you see the concept, right? Okay, let me show you now. I'll bring in some stamps and show you how to stamp on these. All right, before we start stamping, actually, I wanted to show you one more thing. This last little butter knife here, or cheese knife that I showed you, where you wanted to get something underneath it, the other option is to tape it down. I find that if it's really flat, it's easy to tape it down. If I'm working with something curved like this, where I constantly have to be adjusting it, it's harder to tape it down because you have to untape it and adjust it with every single letter, but you can play with that. All right, let's take that guy away. Now I want to finish this spoon. Let me see if you can see this here. It says eat dessert fur. I'm going to put the ST, so it says eat dessert first. And I thought this was a good sample because this spoon is really hard to stamp on because of the curve. Now, because of this deep curve in there, I have to use little letters. And the letters that we carry that are okay to use on stainless steel, I went for the lowercase because the uppercase were taller and it just wouldn't have worked in the curve of the spoon. So I thought it was a good opportunity to kind of explain that to you. Okay, so I've got my stamp set here, and I'm going to finish this letter. I'm going to pull out the S and the T. Lay it right where you need it to go. And then I find that the 2-pound hammer works great because it gives you more oomph, and in this case maybe a couple of whacks. Awesome, got it in there. It's not perfectly lined up, but that's okay. I grabbed the wrong letter, there we go. And the T. All right, now we've got the eat. Let's get it up there. Eat dessert first. Those last couple letters weren't perfect, but it's fun. Now, one thing I did learn the hard way when I was stamping the rest of this, I was sort of playing with the idea of, say, the stamp holding everything in place. And what happens when I hit this and it caused the curvature to move, that I hit this so hard, it moved the spoon so hard that it smacked into the outside of my finger. It's kind of random, but it's something I wanted to caution you not to do because that kind of hurts. So that's why you want everything braced in its place, either with tape or with something bracing it underneath. So as you know with stamping, you need to do a lot of practicing. Same goes especially for stamping on utensils like this, because they're always going to be a little different, and it's not going to say on the back, this one's harder than the next one. So what I like to do is get a set and sacrifice one and use it as my practice piece. So you can see this one's just got random letters all over it. And I'm about to show you how to stamp inside the face of the spoon and the bracing, and it's important, but remember it's going to jump a little bit, but you want to get the best bracing as possible. Now, stamping inside the face of the spoon is a little trickier. I'm going to stamp the word yum in there. It's short and sweet. Now, if I wanted my Y to lay right here, what I want to do first is test and push it down. And you see how it raised up the spoon? That means that I don't have enough padding under here. And when I hit it, it's going to fling it up. So I want to scoot it up the up the pad a little bit more and see if that does it. It's still there, so I want to go a little bit higher, maybe make more of a hill here, and that's perfect. So see how when I lay it there and press it down, nothing moves, so I'm okay to stamp. Okay. And then you just continue on. Now, if I wanted to move down to a smaller letter, I do the same thing, and most likely I'm going to be moving this out. So think that everywhere where you're going to be stamping and it's going to put the impression on a certain spot, that spot needs to be making perfect contact with the bench block. We don't want to stamp here and have it push. You want to brace it like this if you're putting an impression right there.